Hello fellow followers, Joshua. In the walled city the prostitute undresses to the music of trumpets and the sound of many feet. Walls falling to the sound of trumpets, a river parting to let people through, and God ordering genocide. It's time for the book of Joshua. Helpfully for us, the first 9 verses of Joshua tell us exactly what it's about. So, do you know what? I'm always counting. I'm sick of counting like this. It's boring. I'm going to get other people to do it. Keith, what number are we on?
Bonjour, monsieur. Bonjour, madame. Voici numéro 1. Oui, c'est numéro 1. Numéro 1. Number 1.
So firstly, it's about holy war, God using the Israelites to rid the land of idolatry. Reuben?
What number is that?
Number 2.
Secondly, God giving the land to the Israelites in fulfillment of his promises. Phil?
Number 3.
And finally, the importance of Israel being faithful to God. So the whole book is split into 4 sections. Trudy?
Number 1.
Joshua chapter 1 to chapter 5 verse 12. This is focused on Israel's entry into the land with direct echoes to their leaving Egypt. So, for example, they part the river Jordan in order to get into the land just like they parted the Red Sea. You also have them celebrating Passover. In other words, just as God freed them from slavery, that freedom is now coming to completion. Cooks? Chapters 5:13 to 12:24, the conquest of the land.
Joshua,
Yes, Lord.
go and kill everyone.
Yes, Lord. Wait, what did you say? Okay, let me be quite honest with you. For me, this is by far the hardest bit of the Bible to understand. It seems to go against the character of the God that I know and love, so I admit quite up front that this is hard. Some people who I respect and learn from simply say that God reveals himself gradually in Scripture, and so they say God told them to do it, but he didn't really. For some examples, down there you can click a link to see what Rob Bell says about this, and you can see a link about what Steve Chalk says about how he understands the Scriptures. And these are interesting arguments, but I simply can't go that far. While I believe that all Scripture must be understood within its historical context, the writer of Joshua clearly expects us to understand this as history. So let me quickly tell you a couple of things that have helped me. Becca?
Today's number is the number 1. 1 giraffe. Number 1.
That, by the way, is number 1 within our number 2. I hope you're following. So firstly, other ancient Near Eastern sources make it clear that this was considered normal at the time and would not have been considered particularly evil, but that hardly gets us off the hook, does it? Because God should know better. Sean?
2. Number 2.
I think Genesis 15:16 is a key text in this argument. In it, God says to Abraham, "In the 4th generation your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure." The message seems to be that within this conquest, God is both giving the Israelites the promised land and judging the Amorites. Now, I know a lot of people find the idea of God's judgment to be particularly hard. Well, if God is love, how can he be wrathful? But I think this is a completely false jump. As my favourite theologian Tom Wright puts it, the biblical doctrine of God's wrath is rooted in the doctrine of God as the good, wise, and loving creator who hates, yes, hates and hates implacably, anything that spoils, defaces, distorts, or damages his beautiful creation, and in particular anything that does that to his image-bearing creatures. If God does not hate racial prejudice, he is neither good nor loving. If God is not wrathful at child abuse, he is neither good nor loving. If God is not utterly determined to root out from his creation, in an act of proper wrath and judgment, the arrogance that allows people to exploit, bomb, bully, and enslave one another, he is neither loving nor good nor wise. The idea that God's love is incompatible with God's wrath simply hasn't been thought through. Wilfred?
3. That's the magic number.
And finally, God's redemption plan involves Israel being in the land. God is absolutely determined to redeem and restore this world, and that involves Israel being in that land so he can bring his restoration. I'm not saying that this makes it all okay, that I simply have no problem with God ordering this stuff. I do. Just saying that these are things to bear in mind, but this is still the hardest thing for me in the Bible. Okay, so back to the original list. Sarah and Annabelle. The third section, chapters 15 to 21, basically the distribution of the land, who gets what to live on. Boo?
Number 4. Number 4.
The fourth section is chapters 22 to 24. It concerns the continued loyalty of Israel to God with their renewal of the covenant at Shechem. And there we have it, the book of Joshua. God bless, fellow followers. A huge thank you to all my number people. Do you know how on DVDs you get bonus material? Well, for the first time that's happening on Follower Gerrard. There's a link below to all the numbers that I couldn't include.